As the coronavirus crisis really starts to hurt Donald Trump's approval ratings, as polls show that he's trailing Joe Biden in double digits, looks like Republicans are starting to realize, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not such a great idea to publicly support anything that Donald Trump does, but we're also cowards, so we're not gonna cross him publicly either. So this is a report by the LA Times, and they write that in recent days, GOP lawmakers who once saluted, or at least didn't publicly oppose Trump initiatives, have thrown cold water on some of his ideas and proposals, rejecting his suggestion to delay the November 3rd election, repudiating his unsubstantiated claims that mail-in voting leads to mass fraud, eliminating funds for a new FBI headquarters across from his hotel, and snubbing his calls for a payroll tax cut. Now, understand, guys, that all of the motivations behind why Republicans are starting to kind of distance themselves from Trump is their own, it's based on their own self-interest, right? So for instance, if they keep pushing this idea that mail-in voting is terrible, a lot of their voters might not vote at all, right? If they convince Republican voters, hey, mail-in voting isn't safe, and keep in mind the demographic for Republican voters is usually older and they might not want to go to an in-person polling place to cast their ballot, that could really hurt Republican lawmakers' chances of getting reelected, especially the vulnerable ones. So this is all like their own self-interest. It's not about doing the right thing for the country, right? If there was some polling indicating that a payroll tax cut would actually help increase their numbers, they would do the payroll tax cut, hands 100%. Down. There's no question.
100%.
Yeah.
And it always works. It always works with a little bit on the surface and then a bunch of fear on the other end. We knew how Republicans felt about him when he ran in 2015 in the primaries. We saw the things they said about him. We saw what Lindsey Graham was saying about him, the biggest cheerleader now. They all felt that way because they were thinking, wow, this guy is crazy. This guy is a racist. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. But once he's in power, they have to hide that somehow. But this is all in this. I don't think this is even new with them wanting to reject the things he's done. It's just now they have an extra little half a bit of guts to talk about what it is that they're going to reject of his. And again, only because it makes them look bad. It's become every man for himself because whenever you preach loyalty to one guy who absolutely has none back for you, all you do is give. I don't see how they didn't know that from the beginning. We've been saying this since he came into power. Like, if you give everything to a guy who doesn't care about anything regarding your life, your career, you getting back in office, he doesn't care. He wants you back in office if you can help him. So now that they see he may not be in office, they're left with no one, with no leaders. They're left just with the bad things they've said in support of a horrible person. And it's sad that it took them until August of 2020 to realize that.
So one Republican strategist told the LA Times in regard to the stimulus negotiations that are taking place in Congress, Trump is not really a player in these negotiations, Alex Conant says. He does not have much political capital to spend on Capitol Hill. Congressional Republicans don't want to cross Trump, but they also don't want to carry his water. I just love that statement because it's like, let me decode it for you guys, okay? What he's really saying is Republican lawmakers are cowardly little bitches, and they don't want to publicly cross Trump because Trump will be vicious to them on Twitter. They don't want that. They don't want to deal with the backlash from Trump's base. But at the same time, like they're taking this pathetic little middle ground approach where they won't vocally speak out against some of Trump's disastrous tendencies and proposals. And David Gergen, who's a counselor, who had been a counselor to 4 presidents, said he has lost a great deal of his personal power. He still has his constitutional powers, and if anything, he's pushing more against the limits of those, but he's lost the ability to rally people behind him, and there's no one thing he can do as president to turn this around. Most Republicans know that, so increasingly it becomes every man or woman for themselves. Man, politics is just such a dirty game. Yeah, like someone's value is solely based on their political capital.
Yeah, anything they can do, which is why honest people would have a hard time digging themselves in at first, and maybe those things are changing with a few of the progressives that have been winning a bit. But an honest person would get run out of town immediately because they're the weird one. It's like it's an upside down world. I'm like, wait, whose ass have you kissed today? None? Oh man, what are you doing? Get out of here. What's the matter with you? How do you expect to survive in this business unless you kiss the person in power's ring? It's so as people do it less and less, which I don't know if it's enough to really calculate yet, they become the bad guys. The AOCs are crazy. The Ilhan Omars are crazy because they're doing these things that are outside of the normal bounds. But again, we're gonna see the confirmation for those people getting back in office. But the Republican Party hasn't picked up on it yet, and maybe it's gonna take a decimation for them to pick up on that.
So the one person though who seems to have picked up on it a little bit is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So I'm gonna skip ahead and talk a little bit about him because in recent weeks, according to Times reporting, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has told vulnerable Republicans that they may want to distance themselves from Trump to survive tough re-election fights. And that's according to two people familiar with the conversations. And I totally believe that because I really saw it happening in real time. I mean, remember the Senate is supposed to be on break, on recess, as if they're working hard anyway. But Mitch McConnell hit people up and was like, hey, what are you doing? You're one of the vulnerable ones. You might want to get your ass back to Capitol Hill. Even Senate Majority Whip John Thune, who is not up for re-election until 2022, was among those who publicly questioned whether Trump could legally accept the Republican presidential nomination from the White House after Trump suggested he might do so. So some of them are a little more vocal, but still overwhelmingly, when Trump does or says something that could potentially be disastrous for the country, they do take that middle ground approach. They might not publicly support him the way that they did earlier, but they certainly aren't vocal in their opposition toward Trump. And again, it's not based on the best interests of the people they represent. It's not based on the best interests of their constituents. It's based on their own self-interests and their political agenda and aspirations. That's it.
Yeah, we talked about Marquita Bradshaw earlier and how she's so real. Mitch McConnell is a professional politician. Everything he does, every breath and step he takes is about politicking. It's about making sure you say things a certain way and plan for this political moment. And he's telling his people, hey, this is starting to look bad. All we care about is getting back in power and continuing to push things that help our donors get more money and us stay in power. That's it. And if that's not working, he doesn't care who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump facilitated that for long enough. Now he's hurting it. Time to end it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.